Greetings everyone, the Recovering Theist here. Today we're looking at Genesis chapter 1 verse 4. I will be reading from the New American Standard Bible. The reason I picked this is because it is widely considered to be one of the most accurate and literal translations. Plus, it's easier on the ear than, say, the King James Version. There are very few churches today that won't accept the NASB as an inspired translation. Hopefully one day I'll be able to do a video on this subject as well. Okay, onward to today's video. Genesis chapter 1 verse 4. God saw that the light was good, and God separated the light from darkness. Now this verse seems to muddy the proverbial waters of creation. The first half of the verse is a statement concerning God's opinion of his creation. Up until this point, Genesis has been nothing but a description of creation. But here God feels the need to declare the light as good. One can presume that the heavens and the earth in the previous verses were not pleasing to God, since it is here in verse 4, it is declared that he is pleased, but only with the light. Then it goes on to say that he separated the light from the darkness. But as with the heavens and the earth, he doesn't appear to be pleased with this either. Now, if I were to jump into my Bible commentary, you would immediately be treated to long-winded explanations as to the light being the firstborn of God's creation and the purest of all God's creation. This, in my mind, serves to do nothing but muddy the waters and distract you from the utter nonsense of it all. So let's do what we've done thus far and ignore the commentaries and take God's revealed word to mankind at face value. We should have to do no more than this, since basic reading skills are still a rarity when compared to the whole of human history, and it being God's word and all. So let's start a list. In verse 1, all of heaven and earth is created, and in verse 2, it is described in more quote-unquote detail, with all of its nonsense and double talk. In verse 3, he creates light. These three verses were covered in my previous two videos, so check them out if you haven't. So then God declares the light to be good. I mentioned this before, but did you catch the full implication of it? The light is declared to be good, not the heavens, not the earth, not the formless surface of the deep, or the surface of the waters, none of which, by the way, could have existed yet, as we detailed previously. But the light is declared to be good. Why would light be declared good in this pre-fallen universe and nothing else? I haven't the slightest answer for you, to be honest. Everything created thus far and until the fall of man is supposed to be perfect and exactly as God wanted it. It's almost as if God already has a bias against the earth and possibly those that will come to inhabit it. But maybe I'm reading too much into this. God then creates the light from darkness. But this then begs the question, what light? But God hasn't created the sun or even any stars for there to be light and won't do so for another 10 verses. What light are we talking about? And just a detour for a moment, isn't God light? Wasn't his spirit moving across the surface of the waters in verse 2? Yet there was darkness over the surface of the deep. But there couldn't have been darkness because God had not yet created it, that being the darkness. But if there were no stars or sun in the night sky, then wouldn't darkness have reigned across the universe? But how could darkness have reigned across the universe if God is light? And all before God created the light and the darkness. So is God gray then? And how could one see darkness over the deep unless there was already light? But God said that light was created in verse 3, but the darkness wasn't created in verse 4. So what happened to the darkness over the deep in verse 2? Or is that gray too? Okay, I'll stop. But you see my point. We're only 4 verses into the Genesis creation account, and we have reached an infinite loop. Wikipedia defines an infinite loop as a sequence of instructions in a computer program which loops endlessly, either due to the loop having no terminating condition, or having one that can never be met, or one that causes the loop to start over. All of these conditions apply to the Genesis account. None of it can be taken as having any scientific truth whatsoever. We are stuck in an infinite loop that has rendered the book nonsensical. The Bible ceased of being any scientific usefulness by the 4th word in the 1st verse. And it ceased in being of any use whatsoever by the 4th verse in the 1st chapter. So that's where we end it today. Thanks for watching this quick look at Genesis chapter 1 verse 4. Check back soon for when we jump into the next verse. I've been the Recovering Theist, and until next time, peace and long life.